name is Emilio Garcia, and we will get started. As always, for any of you that is the first time they're using this tool, Vevi, while it's not that different from something like Zoom or things like that, it's always good to rehearse how does it work. So hopefully you can see each other on the participants panel. Feel free to interact among yourself, and in the chat, if you can tell us from where are you joining from, that will be great. Always a great thing to know where you are coming from. And if you have questions, there's a Q&A section where you can put those questions, and maybe Gabby or Miranda after the presentation we will tackle them. If you want to just participate the way that we are, let us know on the chat, and we can change your permissions so you can share video and audio and make that question, and engage with us directly, which is what I would love for this and other events to happen. And yeah, with that being said, let us get started. Do you want to share the presentation?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever done this in this.
If not, I can do it. Don't worry. Let me
Yeah,
just.
if you have it, maybe pull that up.
All righty. Hopefully everybody's seeing it, right?
Yeah, I can see it.
Very good. All right. Well, all right. Today's event is going to be about optimizing your CRM, customization, and beyond. I think a very good topic. Obviously, it is a very short time frame to cover everything that you can do. So I hope that you use this event more than anything else to pick your mind and start thinking about things that you can accomplish, and dive into the documentation and knowledge bases and courses that probably you will need to read and watch and do some actions so you can implement it for your CRM. But at least here we will pick your interest enough to start thinking about the possibilities. So this is me, Emilio Garcia. I'm a managing partner at Bountify. We are a demand generation agency. We typically help B2B marketers with challenges related to growth through paid media advertising. And my place in the digital world is LinkedIn. That's where you will find me, and I will be very happy to connect with all you. Also with us today is Gabby. Gabby helped us with the setup of the events. And now we are transitioning to Miranda, which will be managing these events down the road, hosting them, and maybe bringing in more people for interesting conversations about everything HubSpot. And today we have a special guest, Josh. Welcome. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Josh Curcio. I'm CRO, Chief Revenue Officer and Partner at Protocol 80 Inc. We're an inbound marketing agency located in Bradford, Pennsylvania, which is like an hour and a half south of Buffalo, New York. That's like the closest city reference that I have that people would know of.
Yeah.
We work with manufacturing companies, and I also lead the HubSpot user group for contract manufacturers. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we are also very happy. I think this is the best events where we can collaborate and people can learn more from others. So this is great. Welcome. So what will we cover today? Well, after a little introduction, we will cover basically 4 things. Again, very briefly, but hopefully you will find some value on them. And is custom objects, right? Going beyond the objects that you have on your CRM, which is quite a nice capability from the system. We will also cover custom properties within those objects, which is also something that will give you a ton of flexibility, even if you don't want to build any custom object at all. Something that is a little bit newer in my point of view, and hopefully you agree on that one, Josh, is that we also can now customize, if you want to call it, or just change the default associations between objects, which I think is also very powerful. And finally, the whole point of this is, why will I want to create custom objects, custom properties, change associations? Where is because those changes reflect in other tools, and that's where they become quite helpful for decision making. So that's the overall idea. And Josh, I will let you lead with custom objects.
Awesome. Appreciate it. You can actually advance a couple slides here. One more. All right. Thank you. So custom objects are like one of my favorite things in HubSpot because, we can take the standard objects in HubSpot and customize to a certain extent, but it doesn't truly capture the uniqueness of every business and what they want to track and what they want to do and what they want to accomplish in HubSpot. So by using custom objects, you can store that information in its unique manner to what it needs to be stored. Let's take a car dealership, for example. A car dealer, they have customers and maybe they have vendors. They're tracking their customers as contacts and they're tracking their vendors as companies, or maybe they even do some fleet sales and they're tracking their company customers as company objects. But they also have all of these cars that are on the lot. Cars aren't companies, cars aren't contacts, they're not tickets, they're not deals per se. Cars are an object. So with a custom object, that dealership could track each one of these vehicles using like a VIN number. It could track the color, the model, the make, whatever they want to track used as a custom object. Then when they sell that vehicle, they can associate it with the contact and the company and whatever else they need to, as well as the deal or any service that might come in. And then they associate that ticket to the actual custom object, the VIN that they've actually sold. When that car sells to someone else, they can then move that custom object to the new owner of that. Now they have the full picture of what that looks like. It would be really difficult to take that unique scenario and replicate it using just the standard objects. And I know all of us as HubSpot users have probably made some workarounds for things in HubSpot over the years. And certainly there probably are some workarounds that you could do to have those same types of results, but by customizing it and have like that pure view of it, it's so much better for all of the users to understand that full picture and engage with contacts, customers, and now anything else that they're tracking. I'm going to go to a couple like specific examples here in a moment, but like when you're thinking about like custom objects, all the possibilities are endless. The most common ones that we've seen would be like those physical objects. We have policies or policies or subscriptions could be tracked as custom objects. The start date, how many seats, the end date, the features that they would have. Insurance policies, if you're an insurance agent, everything associated with that. If you're a SaaS company, you could track your contracts in there. Those custom objects, you can have multiple associations per deal, per contact, per company. So like the possibilities are endless. If there's something that you need to track for your business, it can be done using a custom object. So if we go forward one slide, this is an example, real use case of a customer that sells aesthetic equipment. So they are selling this to organizations, businesses, and they want to understand by serial number who owns this, who sold it, when did we get the order, when was it shipped, and when does the warranty coverage end. So they have their contacts in here. As you can see, the unit is what the custom object is, and that associates with the contact, the person that bought it, or the multiple people that bought it, the company that owns that equipment, and then the specific type of equipment or unit that is. The coverage end date is 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, depending on what happened in the sale from the ship date. So they understand specifically who owns this. So if you could move forward one slide. So to help the sales team and help the organization, HubSpot actually creates each of these custom objects for them. Once a deal is moved to closed won, you're tracking the model of that unit, you're tracking all this information as associated with the deal. Let's say they purchase 1 or they purchase 20 units at once. HubSpot creates all of those units for them. All it needs is the appropriate serial number for that customer. So you're saving time. You're associating the deal with everyone, or the unit with everyone that was involved in the deal, and it's associated with that sale at the time that it's moved to closed won. So it's helpful. we go forward one slide. The other thing that they do is they sell consumables. So these are units that go into these are things that go into one of these units that they sell separately. Let me move this over here. And they are being resold. So if they need to fill a piece of equipment with these consumables, they know how often someone's purchasing. The sales team can reach out to those individuals and say, hey, you might be out of XYZ consumable. Is it time to reorder? Okay, if we go forward one slide. This is just another example. Go through this really quickly. This is a mining equipment company. They are also tracking a physical object. Some of the cool things that they're doing with theirs is they go through a distribution or a dealer model. So they want to know which dealer specifically sold that equipment. So if something, some sort of communication needs to happen or some warranty information is coming up, they can go right to that dealer and communicate with them as well. They understand which axle was in the equipment, what engine, what chassis, basically all that. And then the other really cool thing here is it is tracking latitude and longitude of that specific piece of mining equipment. So they know exactly where that is in the world. So they could even integrate this using API functionality to map out every single one of these units where they're at, looking at a Google map or something fun like that. So super hyper customized for that business scenario. And I think I have one more example here. So when we're tracking all of these custom objects for the unique data that companies want to track, we can also track and associate everything that's happening post-sale. So in the scenario of the mining equipment, all of their service and parts and all of that is running through HubSpot, and they're able to associate any sort of service with that piece of equipment, any sort of part orders with that piece of equipment. So anything aftermarket is tracked, and then they can look at trends. What are our models, these custom objects, that are having more service issues? What are our customers, or where geographically are we having more service issues? All tracked in HubSpot because they can hyper personalize. Okay, I lied. I have one more slide on custom objects. So custom objects can also help you track a process. So this is a scenario of a company that tracks their production process through a custom object. So each one of these objects or records is a production object. And in this scenario, instead of just tracking one thing, they're going through a custom object pipeline stage. So once something moves to closed one, it creates a production object. Then they move into scheduled, in progress, pallet ready, send to shipping. They even have a custom object for shipping. So once it goes to send to shipping, it automatically creates and associates the new record in the shipping pipeline, and it follows that process. They can communicate with the customer, sending tracking numbers and all that fun stuff once it moves to each one of these stages. So if you can't tell, I'm passionate about custom objects. They're fun to work with and allows companies to have this, unique platform that they can use it day in and day out.
This is very interesting. I actually have a question. In this particular example that you're showing here, so you are associating the deal object, and after it gets close one, you create a custom object, or you have a custom object that is tied or associated to the deal and kind of like goes through the next stages after being won? That's
correct. That's correct. Okay. And similar to the mining or the first one, sometimes customers purchase from them, 2 or 3 or 4 units at a time, and they're not all produced at the exact same time, not shipped at the exact same time. So if they're purchasing 6 units, there's actually 6 production records associated with the deal that, again, follows the stage individually.
Gotcha. Yeah, very, very interesting. So yeah, I think obviously here there are a ton of possibilities. I think that going to specific cases, and if anyone has a question, please post it there. But some of the things that I found, and we will cover a little bit more in the next section, are, when should you create one, right? When do you create a custom object, or it's a custom property that you want? And also, I guess the other thing is that some of these features that you're showing here are representative of some of the features that an ERP will have, right? An enterprise resource, procurement or process software. So I guess that will depend as well on the client, right? Or in this case, on the user. There may be some of those objects that you already have in another system, and for whatever reason you want to migrate, if you want to call it, to HubSpot for report or association purposes, or just you don't have that more sophisticated system down the road on fulfillment after a deal close, as you are showing here, and you want to recreate what will be an ERP or another similar system, with the examples that you show for cars and things like that. So I don't know if in that case, Josh, have you seen, like, if not best practices, where do you draw the line between creating something on HubSpot and using what another system has, or things like that?
Yeah. So part of that, from my experience, has been level of pain that they're having with their ERP system. So, if they need salespeople to have some engagement with whatever's happening in operations or production, and the ERP system, they just don't want them there, or the salespeople refuse to engage with the ERP system, that's a scenario where it's like, all right, well, we'd like the data in both places, but if it's crucial to have it here, and there's so many struggles with the ERP, that's been one of those scenarios where we've accomplished that. Sometimes those ERP systems, they're really great at doing what they should be doing. But when you try to use them as a CRM or as a service tool, they're just not that great.
Yeah. And the other thing I feel is, because the few scenarios that I have found this, is that when you truly need a ton of abilities from those objects, build automations or workflows, right, to make complex decisions, or really build a ton of reporting capabilities without bringing in a business intelligence tool, right? I think that's where also these custom objects shine, because you already have the business intelligence capabilities through reporting, especially if you have custom reporting, but you also have the very flexible, very customizable workflow capabilities from HubSpot. So I think in those two scenarios, that's where you will find less capable systems that already have the objects, but that do not allow you to do a lot beyond their point of view that they already have.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Very good. All righty. Well, let me jump then into our next section, custom properties. So just like in that one, this one is something that will be more familiar to all of you, I hope, right? Because custom properties have existed for a longer time than the ability to create custom objects. They try to solve a similar scenario, right? Where you already have these standard objects like contacts, companies, deals, tickets, and all of them come with properties inside them that allow you to specify each instance, right? So quick examples obviously can be life cycle stages, can be dates when your contacts get created or change, can be numbers like the amount of a deal and all that. And HubSpot comes with hundreds of them already pre-built. So obviously you want to make sure that before creating a new one, you go and see the ones that you have already, because either HubSpot created already or someone else in the company have created a property already. So you want to make sure they're not creating something new. But just like with custom objects, you have the ability to create them. And very similarly, the biggest benefit is not just the ability to add them, but to use them for automations, for reporting, and for, in general, better understanding what you have. So the process is pretty straightforward. Obviously, I invite you to go and visit your portal and try to do that. But basically, you pick the object. And again, some examples are contacts, companies, or deals. And then you select a group, which is highly advisable, right? You want to organize those properties into groups that are meaningful to you, like contact information, web analytics, data from an integration, or things like that. And then you assign a type, right? And so that type can be a phone number, an amount, can be a date, can be a drop down or a checkbox. So all the things that you will have available there, the field type will allow you to select that. And finally, if you're selecting some field types, you will have to specify them even further, like, for example, checkboxes and things like that. You will have to put all the available values that you can have there. And one last thing is if that custom property will be available for forms or for bots, or it will not just be internal. So all those things are things that you can explore. But I wanted to put an example there to give you a reference of what you can do. And I was telling Josh that I was just having this issue yesterday and said, I'm going to put an example here, because we had a conversation about AI in our last session, and we were discussing with Gabby that the quality of what you get from tools like ChatGPT really depends on the prompt, right? On what you ask. And if you are knowledgeable about what you're asking, then you get good answers. And so this is a great example of what will be a way of building a custom property. We happen to work with a ton of partners. And those conversations and the way that we engage with them are obviously different from potential customers. So I was thinking, well, maybe I need to find a way to distinguish between potential customers or companies or contacts and things like partners or vendors or providers that you might or might not deal or have in your CRM. That's a business choice. But for example, in this case, I just say, well, what are some creative ways that HubSpot admins deal with organizing companies that represent competitors, partners, and similar things? You can go and search this on Google for sure, right? But if you have done this before, you will have to scroll through tons of answers and read them, right? And piece out the answers. So because I already have a pretty good idea of what that might be, I said, well, let me try it out. And this is a good example, right, of the ways that you can organize that, which applies very well for objects as well. Sometimes you want to use a custom property. Sometimes you just want to add options to a property that already exists. And sometimes you want to go and create brand new objects or associations to represent that, right? So in this case, those are some of the suggestions that I got. So this is an example of is there any this is the other thing that I was suggesting, right? Before going in and creating a new type of company that represents partners, maybe you can use existing properties and just combine them on a view to use as a classification, for example, in this case for partners. Maybe you can use industry, right? Maybe your partners are always in an industry that never overlaps with your clients. The other option that ChatGPT offered, which is true, is that there's already a type for companies, but it's used right now for B2B, B2C, nonprofit. So maybe you can extend that property instead of creating a new one, right? And finally, this last suggestion, which I don't really like, is just putting some notes there. It's not easy to automate or classify based on notes. And I wouldn't recommend that. And for the context, I asked the same question. And so it's similar, right? You can use lifecycle stages, which is repurposing an existing property, saying, well, what if I add to the lifecycle stages the property partner or supplier? I don't like that idea that much because for me, lifecycle stages have a point of view on progression, right? You have leads and then you have MQLs. And so partner will be something, where do you put it, right? After others or things like that. So the progression there is a little bit challenging, but you can use, again, an existing property like job title. If you don't have any overlapping data on job title, you can use something like that. And finally, the other thing that you can use AI here to build up custom properties will be, well, what will be an appropriate name for that custom property that you have in mind? And in my particular case, ChatGPT suggested that maybe I call it relationship type, which is a good idea. Business role or organization affiliation will be another example. So again, just to tell you, to give you an example of, In reality, for every object that you have, you can build as many custom properties as you have. But my general recommendations are, first, go and see if you already have a property that is similar, and maybe you can just change before creating a new one. And if you have to create a new one, definitely, either go on Google, ask around in your communities, or ask AI, an AI tool, what would be, some suggestions on naming conventions, how other marketers or HubSpot admin have solved it, and you will get ideas from there. All right. So next steps are going to be association, Josh.
Yeah, associations are just kind of that way to take everything to the next level and understand kind of the full picture of everything. If you go forward one slide.
Sure. Sorry.
So historically, you've always been able to associate contacts with companies, contacts with deals, companies with deals, and all of that with tickets, taking these standard objects and seeing how they're associated. There's a recent beta, it might even be live now, where you can associate similar objects. So you can associate a deal to a deal, a ticket to a ticket, a company to a company. Really helpful. A good example of when that might be helpful would be like a deal to a deal when you're upselling or cross-selling something. You have a new opportunity that comes up and you want to associate that to the existing deal in the system. Or another way I've used that where I might be presenting two different options and I know they're only going to choose one of those options. I associate both deals one-to-one with each other. So we could take that even a step further now and have association labels, which is really nice because now you're not just associating two different object types together, but you're associating them and saying, all right, well, how are they associated? So if I have 15 contacts associated to one company, who's the accounts receivable person? Who's the human resources person? Yeah, you can look at job title, but job titles vary so much that you might not be able to use them in a tactical way within the system. So similar to last time, I have a few examples here. So if we could go forward one slide. So this is an example of a workflow that is then sending a marketing email. So I think someone actually in the chat mentioned that using associations and custom objects is a way to kind of resell warranty or tell people that their warranty is about to expire. Well, I have an example of exactly that. So in this scenario, we can understand that based on the custom object that we have, based on the warranty end date, we can send an email 60 days before that warranty end date is coming up. But instead of sending it to everyone at the company or everyone that was associated with that deal where it might not be relevant to, we're sending it specifically to the warranty contact. So they're the person that's going to be in charge of renewing the warranty, extending the warranty, whatever. They should be the ones that get the email. So you can imagine all of the different possibilities that you can have here as to like, I want to send an email to a company, but only specific people at a company or only specific people associated with a deal or a ticket. These association labels, as long as the record is associated with the other record and you use that label appropriately, you can use it in a variety of formats. If we go forward one slide.
I was going to say this one is great. The one that you were showing is great because I can see one example of typically in companies, you will have a contact that is the billing contact, right? The purchasing person. So that's the one that you want to send that invoice and not everybody.
Yeah. When they launched these, I want to say association labels maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember when it was officially launched. And they've been expanding on the functionality of them. But it just opens up so many options as to like who you're communicating with and how you're communicating. Or in this case, this is a report. So you can use association labels in report. So using that same association label, I'm saying, all right, I'm going to bill a report here, but I only want to see information or I want to be able to filter by the association label. So you can actually use that association label type as one of your data sources in the custom report builder to then have that available as one of your filters or reportable items. So again, another use case of where You have the information, you store it, but how do you get the output of it? So HubSpot's given us that ability here with the custom report builder. All right, one more screenshot. This is a workflow, but instead of who we're emailing, this is what we're enrolling into the workflow. So we can use those association labels to enroll a particular contact into a workflow. So in this scenario, this goes back to that production pipeline that we were talking about. They need artwork for what's in production, and associated with the deal in these records, there's one contact that is the designer. They don't want to enroll all, I don't know, it could be 10 people, asking all 10 of them for artwork, because that's going to be really complicated, right? They only want to email the designer and have this person go through the workflow. So it looks and says, all right, do we have a production record that is in like artwork needed stage or artwork in progress? Yes, if we do, then let's enroll this contact and then only communicate or only have the actions take place for the person that is the designer associated with that record. So again, just another way to hyper personalize and understand not only what's being stored in the system, but how things are associated and relevant to one another. It's just a way to kind of take your customization to the next level.
Very good. All right. And so as we were saying, just to finish on this one, beyond the defaults, why do you want in general, I hopefully Josh and I have conveyed this already so far. Why do you want to create custom objects and custom properties to begin with? Is because allows you to use them to either automate or create flows around them, right? Or report on them and hopefully extend what you have already. And so let me put an example, because I think it's very, very good and something that a lot of us have experienced, even if we have never built a custom object before. And is the new object that HubSpot added, I think it was months ago, maybe a year already, lead, right? The lead object is a great example of how before having it, we were solving that with a not so great solution, which was a lead status, but where does it break down? So let me walk you through that example. So when you have contacts and companies and you want to start a potential sales conversation with them, it's not clear that there's a business opportunity, but it's clear that there's some either intent from the buyer, potential buyer, or from the company. You want to document that effort. And in the past, the way that you used to do that was, and it still is maybe for a ton of companies, is that you use a property within the object of contact or company called lead status, right? So you can say, well, this is a new lead, or I'm attempting to having conversations with them or connect with them, or either they get qualified or disqualified, and therefore I create an opportunity out of it or not. So in theory, that property kind of works, right? Because you have it for a contact. But where it starts breaking down is that sometimes you are reaching to the company in general and you don't have a contact just yet. Or for example, you might have a company that is already a client that have 3 or 4 deals, and then a contact in another part of the company or the same person, but at some point in the future, ask you for, their interest on a new feature that you have or a new product or service. How do you handle that? Because then you have this property that you have to reuse, right? That's one challenge. And it starts breaking down in the sense that, well, you have this customer that is a new lead. How is that so? And the other thing is that if you want to report on what had happened with that contact over time, then you are restricted to this property where you just have one status, and you cannot tell the story of, oh, well, this person has shown interest 3 years ago about this product and 2 years ago about this other service, and we reach out to them a year ago, right? So telling that story with just the custom property will be very hard, but becomes quite easy now that we have access to a lead object, right? So this is one of those examples where HubSpot has already built something for everybody. But just like you were saying, Josh, the moment that you create that object is really, really important that you start thinking about how are you going to leverage the existence of it for your processes, right? I think that's where you draw the line, because our CRM is just a model of reality. And so in theory, you can model so many things, right? A lot of things can be added as objects, and you can go into the trap of adding a ton of objects or custom properties when there's really not a ton of work that you have for them, right? So this, for me, this slide represents the questions that you might have to ask. Do I need that property or object because I want to automate something, or create a decision tree around it because I want to get detailed information about that object in reality that I want to have on reports, or maybe because I want to use it to extend functionality beyond the CRM. So if you have a positive answer for any of those questions, I think that's why, or you should explore adding that custom object or custom property. I don't know if you have something or a remark on that one as well, Josh.
No, but I do have a remark on the lead object and how you mentioned like that old process of using lead status just wasn't great. The one thing I really love about that lead object is that you can have it automatically set, like when a rep emails someone, it automatically moves to attempting. When they email back or there's a meeting, it's connected, and then it forces them to either qualify or disqualify, and like, all right, tell me more. That's one of my favorite parts about that lead object.
Yes. The other one was the never-ending struggle between the marketing team and the sales team in larger organizations, where how would you convey that marketing delivers a lead to sales, doesn't work out, and how do you reignite that process if for whatever reason that prospect raised their hands again, and so he sent again from marketing to sales, or sales just reach out proactively at some point in the future? How do you mark in time those events and separate them? It's very hard to do just with the custom property, but with an object, then all those scenarios are possible. Yeah. So awesome. So I think with that, we are at the end of the presentation. As always, we will have these resources that you can go and explore. Gabby, I'm sure will send this presentation with all the slides and the links and all that in a future email. So be on the lookout for those. And also I want to invite you to save the date. We will be having our next HubSpot user group session around May 9, actually. And we will be covering what will be the implications of the recent acquisition by HubSpot of Clearbit, right? Especially for B2B companies, especially for companies that work on account-based efforts. I think it's going to be great news for all of you. So yeah, stay tuned there. Josh, thank you so much for joining us today, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. That was fun.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Bye-bye.
Bye.